December the 26th, 1980. RAF Woodbridge, Suffolk. 2 in the morning. 2 United States Air Force security patrolmen, Airman John Burrows and Staff Sergeant Bud Steffens, noticed lights descending into Rendlesham Forest, just beyond the eastern perimeter of the base. They initially assume it is a downed aircraft. They radio the control tower. The tower confirms there is nothing on radar that would explain the lights. They enter the forest. What they find is not a downed aircraft. What they find is not something they can immediately explain. What they find is the beginning of one of the most documented, most investigated, and most unresolved military encounters in the history of British airspace. The Ministry of Defence would later say the incident posed no threat to national security. It also said it had never investigated it as a security matter. Then the intelligence files went missing. This is the full investigation into Britain's Roswell. My name is the voice behind creepy Chronicles, and I want to establish something clearly before we go further. This investigation does not claim to know what was in Rendlesham Forest in December 1980. It does not assert extraterrestrial origin or any other specific explanation. What it does is examine the documented record, the military witness statements, the official memo, the physical evidence, the MOD's own files, and identify what remains, after 45 years, without a satisfactory official explanation. Nick Pope, who worked on the UK Ministry of Defence's UFO desk from 1991 to 1994, described the Rendlesham Forest incident as the perfect storm of a UFO case. Multiple military witnesses, physical evidence, sightings over 3 consecutive nights, and an official response that has never fully resolved what those witnesses reported. On the first night, Burrows and Steffens reported a structured metallic object in the trees, triangular in shape, covered in strange markings. The object appeared to move through the forest before disappearing. Suffolk police were called and attended the scene. Their log recorded only the distant Orford Ness lighthouse as a possible explanation for the lights. The lighthouse has been cited by skeptics ever since. The witnesses who were inside the forest consistently reject it. The following morning, investigators returned to the area where the object had been reported and found physical evidence. 3 ground depressions in a triangular pattern, shallow, consistent, at the points where a 3-legged landing structure might have rested, scorch marks on the surrounding trees. Tree damage at a height consistent with something moving through the canopy. Radiation readings were taken at the site. The readings were elevated above background levels, not at dangerous levels, but measurably and consistently higher at the depression points than in the surrounding forest. The readings were documented and included in the subsequent official military report. The third night is the most significant, because of who went in. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt was the deputy base commander at RAF Bentwaters, the adjacent base. When reports came in that the lights had returned on the night of the 28th of December, Halt went into the forest himself. He brought a team. He brought a micro-cassette recorder. The recording Halt made during the investigation, known as the Halt tape, is a publicly available document. On it, you can hear Halt describing in real time what he and his team were observing. A red glowing object moving through the trees, objects in the sky above the field beyond the forest. Beams of light descending from those objects to the ground. At one point, Halt describes the object sending beams of light toward him and his team. The radiation monitor registers an elevated reading. Halt can be heard instructing his team to take cover. Halt filed an official memo to the British Ministry of Defence on the 13th of January 1981. The memo is a real document. It is available at the National Archives. In it, Halt describes the events of all 3 nights, the physical evidence, the radiation readings, and the observations made during the third night investigation. It concludes by noting that the events are unexplained. The Ministry of Defence acknowledged receiving Halt's memo. Its formal response was that the events posed no threat to national security and had therefore never been investigated as a security matter. That response raises an immediate question. If the events were never investigated as a security matter, why did the MOD have files on them? When researchers began requesting those files under Freedom of Information legislation in the 2000s, a picture emerged that contradicted the MOD's position of passive disinterest. Documents released to the National Archives confirmed that the MOD had been tracking and filing information about the Rendlesham incident for years. There was correspondence. There were internal memos. There were responses to parliamentary questions. There was, in other words, a substantial file. And then there was a gap, a huge gap, in the words of those who examined the released files, where the defense intelligence documents relating to the incident should have been. The files that would have contained any genuine security assessment of what US military personnel had reported in a British forest adjacent to a NATO base that housed tactical nuclear weapons were missing. The BBC reported this in 2010, when the latest tranche of MOD UFO files was released to the National Archives. The missing files were not disputed by the MOD. They simply were not there. The witnesses have continued to speak publicly about what they experienced. Jim Penniston, one of the security police who approached the craft on the first night, has maintained for 45 years that what he encountered was a structured object unlike any aircraft he had ever seen. He described touching the craft and feeling symbols on its surface, an account that has generated both intense interest and significant skepticism. Charles Halt has spoken extensively in documentary interviews and in congressional testimony about what he witnessed on the third night. He has stated, on the public record, that he believes what his team observed was not from this world. He has also stated that he believes there has been a cover-up, not by the British government specifically, but by American intelligence agencies that he believes took control of the physical evidence. These are the statements of a retired senior US military officer. They are on the public record. They are also, in their specific claims, unverifiable by any currently available documentation. What is verifiable is the Halt memo, the physical evidence documented in it, the Halt tape, and the missing MOD intelligence files. The Rendlesham Forest incident remains, in 2026, officially unexplained. The MOD closed its UFO desk in 2009, stating that investigating UFO reports was not a defense priority and that no UFO had ever been shown to pose a threat to UK airspace. The intelligence files that might have contained a genuine security assessment of what happened in December 1980 are not in the National Archives. What is in the National Archives is Halt's memo, the physical evidence it describes, the radiation readings, the recorded testimony of a deputy base commander who walked into a Suffolk forest at 2 in the morning because his security personnel had reported something they could not explain. Creepy Chronicles investigates the cases the official record leaves unresolved. Every Thursday and every Sunday, real, documented, told without apology. 45 years after those lights descended into Rendlesham Forest, the senior US Air Force officer who investigated them in person still says he does not know what they were. The British government's intelligence files on the subject are missing, and the physical evidence documented at the scene has never been officially explained. Whatever was in that forest in December 1980, somebody knows what it was, and they have not told us.